Hey everyone, Ryan here from The Why. Today we're diving into American Psycho, a film that doesn't merely stand out from its era, it practically carves out its own genre. Few movies manage to fuse satire, horror, and pitch-black comedy with the cold gleam of late 80s materialism quite like this one. More than 20 years on, its peculiar blend of absurdity and brutality still hasn't been duplicated, which might explain why it's exploded across the internet recently, and why it lends itself so easily to meme culture. So let's get into it. 30 things you probably didn't know about American Psycho. Because of the film's graphic violence, many luxury brands wanted nothing to do with it. Klein and Comme de Garçons are referenced in Bret Easton Ellis's novel, but when the cameras started rolling, Klein backed out at the last minute, and Comme de Garçons refused to let their overnight bag be used to cart around a corpse. The filmmakers pivoted, replacing them with Bret Ellis and Jean-Paul Gaultier. Another brand, Cerruti, appears frequently in the book. Instead of banning their clothing outright, they struck a compromise. Patrick Bateman could wear Cerruti, just not during any murder scenes. Beyond Christian Bale's famously intense method acting, he also managed this. You know exactly which moment, no one forgets it. You can't help but wonder what sort of headspace he had to enter to pull that off. One of the longest-running misconceptions about American Psycho is that Patrick Bateman wears a Rolex. It's understandable. Rolex is mentioned 26 times in the novel. But the company refused to let Bateman wear one on screen. Every other character could, just not him. So the watch that resembles a Rolex date just 16013 is actually a two-tone Seiko 5 SNJX90. That's also why a certain memorable line from the book had to be rewritten. Don't touch the Seiko. Simply doesn't hit the same way. And if the name Patrick Bateman rings a bell, there's a reason. It's a play on another iconic psycho, Norman Bates. One of the most impressive things about American Psycho is its layered detail. On a first viewing, the movie almost feels like a vivid hallucination. But the more you rewatch it, the more you start picking up its subtle signals. Tiny choices that reveal its underlying themes of identity, deception, and performative sanity. Take a small but brilliant moment during Patrick's second meeting with Detective Kimball. As Kimball gets ready to leave, he casually pulls out a Huey Lewis CD, mentioning he grabbed it on the way over. Nice and harmless. But that's just misdirection. What he's really doing is angling the CD case so its reflective surface casts a beam of light straight into Bateman's eye. A quiet, probing gesture disguised as idle chit-chat. The real question you have to ask is, why on earth would Kimball do that? And no, it's not because he's trying to mess with Bateman for fun. What he's doing is far more deliberate. He's testing Bateman's reflexes. Psychological research shows that psychopaths often exhibit autonomic hyporeactivity to negative stimuli. In simpler terms, they unconsciously respond less to unpleasant sensations than the average person. And getting a beam of light flashed directly into your eye is definitely unpleasant. Most people instinctively flinch, recoil, or shield their face. Bateman doesn't. He stays perfectly still, completely unfazed. That small reaction, or lack of one, speaks volumes. Director Mary Harron has said she remembers two moments when Christian Bale unexpectedly broke from the script. During the jump rope scene, the crossover trick was entirely improvised. And during Paul Allen's murder, all the dancing, the swinging hips, the exaggerated gestures, even the little moonwalk, was Bale's invention. In a film known for precision, these bursts of spontaneity made Bateman feel even more eerie, playful one second, murderous the next. When preparing for the role, Bale confronted another issue, his teeth. Bateman, as written, is hypervain, an image-obsessed narcissist who treats his appearance like a religious ritual. Bale decided that his own teeth didn't match that persona. As he put it, "I liked my teeth, but I wasn't so attached to them that I'd ruin the movie by refusing to fix them." Whether you call that commitment to the craft or a convenient excuse for cosmetic upgrades, the result was the perfect $1 million Bateman smile. Originally, the film was heading in an entirely different, and frankly bewildering, direction. David Cronenberg was set to direct, with Brad Pitt as Bateman. But Cronenberg's version had almost nothing in common with the final film. He wanted to remove the restaurant and nightclub scenes, eliminate all violence, and strangest of all, end with a musical number atop the World Trade Center. Bret Easton Ellis, who was writing the script, thought the idea was absurd and simply ignored the notes. Understandably frustrated, Cronenberg fired Ellis, brought in another writer, hated that draft even more, and finally walked away from the project. That's when Mary Harron stepped in, with Christian Bale firmly behind her vision. But then came the complication. Leonardo DiCaprio wanted the role, and Lionsgate was ready to pay $20 million for the biggest star on the planet. For Bale, who had already lost roles to DiCaprio in This Boy's Life, What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and Titanic, this must have felt like history repeating itself in the worst way. In May 1998, DiCaprio was officially announced as Patrick Bateman. Harron refused to direct without Bale and was fired. Oliver Stone was brought on to direct DiCaprio instead. What followed is murky. Some say creative differences tanked the project. Others point to a curious story involving feminist icon Gloria Steinem. She had been a vocal critic of the book since its release. According to one account, she took DiCaprio to a Yankees game and urged him to reconsider the role, warning that he had just gained a massive young female fanbase after Titanic, and American Psycho was drenched in violence against women. Whether that talk influenced him or not, DiCaprio exited the project soon after. Adding a strange twist to the whole situation, Steinem married Christian Bale's father later that same year. Draw your own conclusions, but it's hard not to see the irony. When Bale finally prepared to embody Patrick Bateman for real, he sifted through the expected inspirations: Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, even Richard Ramirez. But what he ultimately created was something more chilling, not a mimicry of a famous serial killer, but a living embodiment of narcissistic emptiness, hiding behind expensive suits and a flawless morning routine. Interestingly, the real-life inspiration Bale drew on for Patrick Bateman wasn't a serial killer at all. It was, somewhat hilariously, Tom Cruise. The idea came after Bale watched Cruise on David Letterman, noting the actor's intense, almost manic friendliness paired with a complete lack of depth in the eyes. Technically, it was Mary Harron who revealed this in 2009. There's a bit of historical confusion, though. Cruise's only Letterman appearance before 2000 was in 1988, while the viral clip people often cite of him laughing is from around 2004. Likely, Harron misremembered the exact interview. It could have been the Rosie O'Donnell show, which aired just a week after filming began. Details aside, the essence is clear. Bale wanted Bateman to radiate a charming, magnetic surface that concealed a void beneath. Adding to the film's psychological intricacy, Willem Dafoe shot 3 separate takes for every scene with Detective Kimball. One where he was oblivious to Bateman, another where he was suspicious, and a third where he was fully aware of Bateman's murderous nature. In post-production, these takes were spliced together, leaving audiences perpetually unsure whether Kimball truly understood what he was witnessing, a brilliant reflection of Bateman's elusiveness. After DiCaprio departed to star in The Beach, Lionsgate rehired Harron but remained hesitant about Bale. The studio first approached Ewan McGregor, who declined out of loyalty to Bale, and explored options with Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Edward Norton, and Vince Vaughn, all of whom passed. Eventually, Lionsgate relented, hiring Bale under 3 strict conditions: a budget cap of $10 million, a minimal salary of $50,000, and the casting of established actors in supporting roles, hence the inclusion of Willem Dafoe, Jared Leto, and Reese Witherspoon. In practice, only $7 million of the budget was spent, most of it licensing the film's iconic soundtrack. Subtle details like Bateman leaving the dry cleaners reveal Harron and Bale's commitment to nuance. If you slow the footage down, for a split second, Bateman's true, emotionless face flickers across the screen. To nail the film's sex scenes, Harron and Bale took an unusually hands-on approach. They watched adult films together. It wasn't for titillation. It was purely technical, a way to study framing, angles, and intimacy while keeping the movie R-rated. Harron recalls Bale sketching stick figure diagrams of potential positions and camera angles, a bizarre but hilariously methodical approach to filmmaking. One can only imagine a collection of Bale's stick figure pornos. Then there's the scene everyone remembers, the infamous business card sequence. It's absurd, almost ritualistic, how much significance these cards hold for the men, symbols of their ego, status, and masculinity. The filmmakers underscored this obsession with a clever audio cue. Every time a card is drawn, it sounds like a sword being unsheathed, turning a mundane object into a weaponized emblem of power. One of the funniest little details about American Psycho is just how awful the business cards actually are. Take a close look. Every single one of them misspells acquisitions. Bateman's card, of course, has a glaring error, a missing space between the ampersand and Pierce, which is especially ironic given his obsessive-compulsive personality. And if you look closely at the layout, the text is off-center. It's a subtle, almost cruel joke that the men's carefully curated symbols of status are riddled with imperfections. Speaking of symbols and rules, the movie faced an NC-17 rating prior to release, not because of the murder, but because of the sex scenes. Specifically, the montage with the two call girls had to be trimmed by 18 seconds to secure an R rating. It's a strange irony. A film soaked in blood is perfectly fine, but consensual sex required censorship. Uniformity is a major theme throughout American Psycho, and no scene demonstrates this better than Bateman's first encounter with Paul Allen. Bateman explains that their shared style, Valentino's suits, Oliver Peoples' glasses, is what defines them. But the irony is that Allen is just as meticulously styled, same suits, same glasses, same haircut, albeit slightly better. The scene where Allen mistakes Bateman for Marcus reinforces this obsessive mimicry, and you can even catch the real Marcus looking around, trying to figure out who called his name. Christian Bale's dedication to Bateman extended beyond costume and posture. He never socialized on set, and remained locked in his American accent throughout filming. When he finally slipped into his natural Welsh accent at a rap party, co-stars were reportedly stunned. His commitment to immersion even extended to the shower scene, which director Mary Herron reveals was watched by all the women on set, a quirky, if slightly awkward, behind-the-scenes anecdote. Josh Lucas, who played Craig McDermott, initially thought Bale's performance was terrible, confusing and baffling on set. But after seeing the final cut, he completely reversed his opinion, calling Bale one of the greatest actors ever. It's a testament to how Bale's unsettling precision and depth only fully register in context. Even with more than half the film's budget spent on music licensing, some issues couldn't be solved with cash. Whitney Houston refused to license her performance of The Greatest Love of All, so the filmmakers improvised with an orchestral version. Huey Lewis, however, was on board with Hip to Be Square, giving the film one of its most iconic musical moments, an ironic, upbeat soundtrack underscoring some of the darkest scenes of Bateman's life. Then, just 2 weeks before the movie's release, Huey Lewis was contacted about including Hip to Be Square on the film's official soundtrack. Lewis's concern? The soundtrack wasn't a true album. It was his song, one other track, some background music, and a few of Bateman's monologues. Essentially, he saw it as reselling his work packaged with random movie audio. Politely, he declined. By that point, however, Coke Records had already shipped 100,000 copies to retailers, assuming it was a done deal. The result, a massive recall and destruction of all copies. Frustrated, Coke Records president Bob Frank issued a statement blaming the recall on Lewis' objection to the violent nature of the movie. But the logic doesn't hold. If Lewis truly objected to the violence, why had he licensed the song in the first place? It was a classic case of corporate spin gone wrong. Meanwhile, Christian Bale's path to fully embodying Bateman wasn't complete until he met the author himself, Bret Easton Ellis, for approval. That lunch reportedly became one of the most unnerving experiences of Ellis's life. Bale didn't just show up as himself, he arrived fully in character, dressed like Bateman, speaking like him, and locking Ellis in that same vacant, chilling stare from the screen. Eventually, Ellis had to ask him to ease up. Bale's commitment was almost too much to handle. Even the film's details extended to typography. The font on Paul Allen's business card, copperplate Gothic, wasn't random. It's the same font used throughout the title sequence and credits, tying the meticulous visual design together. Bale's transformation for the role went beyond mind and mannerisms. His physical preparation was equally intense. Before American Psycho, Bale had never stepped foot in a gym. Overnight, he adopted Bateman's daily workouts, committing to 3-hour sessions every single day. As he later admitted, "The bigger your muscles get, the fewer brain cells you have." A wry comment on the exhausting, obsessive nature of the regime. Alongside the physical training, Bale also immersed himself in Bateman's morning routine for the entirety of filming, a ritual that included everything from grooming to diet, cementing the character both visually and psychologically. Despite the fact that American Psycho ultimately propelled Christian Bale into stardom, the role was anything but an obvious choice at the time. When the offer first came, everyone warned him against it. References to Anthony Perkins in Psycho were frequent. Once you play a villain of that intensity, people never forget the image. And the warnings weren't all well-meaning. Bale later revealed he even received death threats for agreeing to take on such a divisive character. For most actors, that would have been a deterrent. For Bale, it only reinforced his commitment. Ironically, a few years later, when Bale considered taking on Bruce Wayne, he faced the same criticism: "Don't do it, you'll be typecast." He ignored it, and history shows how far trusting your instincts can take you. Some of the coincidences that follow are trivial but amusing nonetheless. Bale eventually became Batman, and Jared Leto later took on the Joker. Meanwhile, in American Psycho, Bale's character kills Leto's, an almost eerie foreshadowing. Small details, like Bale's timing and his posture on the couch, even seem to carry over into The Dark Knight Rises. On a textual note, the novel itself contains 2 typos, with Bateman misprinted as Batman, a detail that fans can't help but chuckle over. The film's ending is another direct nod to the book. A sign on the wall reads, "This is not an exit," words lifted verbatim from Ellis's novel. Much of the dialogue throughout the film also comes directly from the text, though the violence is dramatically toned down. Reading even a few passages of the novel reveals just how extreme Ellis's descriptions are: torture, mutilation, cannibalism, necrophilia. The book is shockingly graphic. In Germany, it was banned for 5 years. In Australia, it's shrink-wrapped and restricted to readers over 18. Translating this fully to film would likely require inventing a new rating altogether. In the realm of cinematic spin-offs, the direct-to-video American Psycho 2, 2002, stands as a cautionary tale. Mila Kunis stars as the new Patrick Bateman after killing him as a child, but the film wasn't originally intended as a sequel. It began life as the girl who wouldn't die, and only after noticing its resemblance to American Psycho did the creators add a scene killing Bateman and market it as a continuation. The result was predictably disastrous, a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. When talks of a third installment surfaced, Kunis's reaction was succinct: "Please, somebody stop this." Ultimately, what makes American Psycho such a lasting work isn't the shock factor or the violence. It's the meticulous blending of satire, psychological insight, and obsessive attention to detail. Bale's transformative performance, Harron's visionary direction, and the faithful, but carefully moderated, adaptation of Ellis's novel together created a film that remains unsettling, brilliant, and endlessly watchable, more than 2 decades later.